okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, good. I was worried because you said I was on mute. I was like, uh-oh.
Okay.
So yeah, so I pulled up the slide for the folks that have indicated interest, and as we were talking, I'll just go to the agenda. We're starting with welcome and introductions, and my name is Dan Ott with KC Water, and I've participated in this last year, and I'm planning to participate again this year, and have volunteered to continue to help serve as a facilitator for this group for our meetings and just to help shepherd along the process. But I've got an improvement initiative, or at least some proposed initiatives that Zach Monroe's on the line as well, are planning to tackle. And then Getachew, so we're going to focus on CIP delivery again, and then Getachew with DC Water. And then we have Duncan on the line, who's also going to be working with Getachew, are going to help serve as the leadership from the utility side for CIP planning. So that's the same as what we did last year in terms of our kind of leadership structure. And then we've got our program facilitators, once again with Jello and Scott and Mike Burnett, providing kind of behind the scenes and support and overall WISE coordination. And then Mike, of course, is our resource for a number of things, but in particular on business process modeling, brings a lot of great expertise there. So that's the group, and then obviously we've got some experienced utility partners with you, Jeff, from Vancouver, and Zanetta from Louisville, who have participated in this the last couple of years. So our plan for today was and I'm just going to kind of breeze through the methodology fairly quickly since we're pretty familiar with it, but just to kind of refresh our memories, and then talk about kind of what is this group doing and why. And as we were talking about this meeting, because what we're doing is we're each independently working on things as utilities, I would say it's not about quantity, it's about quality. So, if we end up with 3 or 4 utilities, like right now we've got 3 utilities represented. If we have 4 that really want to focus on CIP delivery and planning and produce some improvements in that area amongst us, that's fine. We've signed up. We've paid our dues for WISE, and ultimately, and I kind of speak to some things Zanetta has talked about, is for us on the utility side, we need to be able to deliver value through the work we're doing here. So to me, that's first and foremost, is for us to work together, to collaborate, and get to the end of the year and get some tangible value out of our time together. So if that's 15 utilities meeting every couple of weeks, great. If it's 3 or 4 of us and we're getting some good progress made, that's success in my mind. So we may have to kind of be flexible as we think through that. And I think the way Cello and Scott, the way you guys have thought about this in terms of the way to do this, I think can help with that. So I'll kind of share some of that as well. So we had planned to spend about 20 minutes and talk about participation and kind of what that looks like for this group, the overall WISE, methodology, and just kind of refresh our memories on that. And then talk about okay, what would this next year look like kind of generally in terms of what we hope to accomplish. And again, that one is a little more for folks who maybe haven't done this before, so I think it'll look very familiar to this group. And then we can get into some more discussion at the end, to kind of see where we go from here. If that all sounds good, I'll just kind of keep plowing ahead. All right. I'll move pretty quick. So for year one WISE, Jeff, I don't think maybe you haven't seen this. This kind of maybe goes back to your question that you asked earlier. There's like 6 different teams focused on different areas of WISE, and our team is one of those 6, focused on CIP planning and delivery, and really, again, each utility working on and being in collaboration to work on how can we improve our business processes within, this particular area and leverage the methodology of UAIM and WISE. But there are also other groups going, and you guys may be participating in some of those groups, and we may be able to leverage some of the tools that are coming out of these, because that's one thing too, is to remember all of these all these pieces are kind of interconnected. This graphic in the middle is kind of the one that has been put together to kind of illustrate kind of the full organization of how things fit together. But we've got a group working on workforce and organizational culture. We got a group working on how to do change management, some of the best practices for change management, and those were new last year. So they're a year in, and they're going to move forward with year 2. And then again, CIP, we've got team assets. Team assets is very similar to us, working on business processes related to asset management and risk, and implementing improvements within those areas. And then team energy and team analytics are new areas. So that's where we fit into this coming year. This first year in WISE is we're one of the 6 kind of core teams working on kind of moving the development and implementation and leveraging, the benefits of WISE within our utilities.
Dan, who's leading Team Energy?
Cello.
Do you know, or does Cello know?
I don't know. I think Cello probably could tell us on that.
John Norton from Great Lakes, and okay. George Friedrich from Metro Vancouver was involved in the original discussions and expressed some interest. And John Norton and I had a phone call with Blair Wisdom from Metropolitan Denver, who seemed interested in joining. She would be a new utility partner. I'm not sure if she's joined already or not, but and there are a few others. If you'd like to know more, I have a spreadsheet that shows who indicated interest in which of the topics.
Thanks, Joe. Well, I'll follow up separately. Yeah,
John Norton.
Colin's roles changed, and we're just trying to figure out how to cover the bases. So that's awesome. Thanks.
Thanks.
Very good. So, looking at and thinking about our particular team that's focused on CIP planning and delivery initiatives, I think we learned some things from how things went last year. We had a good year last year. We went to this online format. We met every couple of weeks. We're going to plan to continue to do that, as it has value. And I think the big thing we learned is that we've got some folks, like the folks on this call today, that have been involved with UAIM and WISE and have some experience and are really kind of continuing and building upon the work that they've done in the past. But we also anticipate, and like last year, had some folks that were kind of new to UAIM to WISE. And so we're anticipating that again. And so we wanted to kind of structure things to allow folks to participate in the way in which, makes sense for them and what they're able to do. So we've kind of broken it into 2 groups. We've got folks that say, hey, I just want to be a participant. Okay. I just want to do these things. I want to come to the meetings and listen and learn. I want to, participate in the remote workshops and hear some of the presentations, see what other utilities are doing, and then also possibly participate in some of the, in-person events at the conferences. So that would be the participant list. So we've kind of made that as available and asking people, hey, if that's what level of commitment you can offer that you can do right now, or that you want to do for your utility in this area, we've got a place for you, and there's value for doing that. But then we also really want to know who are the core team folks. And I would say the people on this call, Vancouver, Louisville, BC Water, KC Water, represent what I would call the core team. We're folks that are going to pick an area within CIP planning or CIP delivery and really identify an area of improvement and really dig in and use the methodology to identify opportunities for improvement and then work towards implementing those improvements. So, and as it kind of shows on this slide, we're going to collaborate and work on deliverables together through these meetings, as well as meetings outside of these meetings, and work in leveraging the value of Cello, Scott, Mike, Barnett to help us along the way, and then to working together on things where it makes sense. But then also doing work on our own independently to move things forward, and then ultimately getting some implementation, doing some piloting work, and then at the very end, preparing a case study like we did last year, and then to being prepared to present what we did, share with the world what we got done, and then also to share any artifacts that we can contribute to the WISE library for CIP planning and delivery. So we want to continue to build that knowledge base and leverage that knowledge base as well, where we can, for things that hey, we saw that DC Water is doing this, and we'd like to grab that and adapt it to our utility, those kinds of things. So does that make sense? Kind of like I say, we could kind of 2 different opportunities for how you want to participate, and maybe going out on a limb, but assuming that the 4 utilities on this call are in that core team planning to identify an initiative and move that forward. But you don't have to decide that today, but we would like to know, if that assumption is correct, so we can make sure to keep you guys engaged on the calls and and keep things moving forward for all of us. Any questions about that? Okay. That was really kind of one big thing we wanted to hit with this call. I showed this earlier. This was the folks that had previously expressed interest within the different utilities. We just have email addresses at this point, so we'll send this out to folks and do follow up with these folks to really find out, hey, do you want to jump in and be kind of more of a participant, or do you want to really dig in and be tackle an initiative this year? All right, so that's kind of the plan for participation. The next piece was kind of the overview of okay, how does how does WISE, what is WISE, how does it work, and how does it apply to this team's specific context of CIP planning and delivery? So I'll go through this, and you guys just chime in if I'm leaving something out, or if you have a question. Duncan, I think hopefully this will be really helpful for you if you haven't seen some of this before, in terms of like kind of the methodology and how it fits together, and maybe connecting the dots of the overall WISE methodology, and then how we're going to apply it within CIP delivery and or CIP planning and delivery. So, okay. So what we've got shown here is WISE. I kind of shared this, or I did share this at the Utility Managers Conference last week. Is in my mind, it kind of breaks it up into 4 things. WISE is a framework, it's a methodology, it's using change management, and then implementing changes, and then it's about being a community of utility partners kind of helping each other along the way. So that's kind of the 4 things of how WISE works. And what's shown on this slide is really the framework and the methodology. So we're really focusing in on identifying business processes and looking at our CIP planning and delivery business process and how to improve it, and then leveraging, and over here on the right is the methodology. So this is the WISE methodology that's been developed over the last couple of years about how we're going to look at our CIP planning and delivery processes and then work towards making implementation. So I'm going to walk through each of these 6 steps just pretty quickly, and then we'll just kind of hit that, and then we can go through any questions. And again, kind of raise your hand if you got any questions about how this is going to work. So my slide kind of went crazy on me there. There we go. So it starts with assessment. So we'll start with an assessment of where are we. You know, if let's just say you're going to pick, something within, like I'll just say for Casey Water, for example, we last year we tackled, let's just get our CIP planning and CIP delivery processes documented and get them into a business process model, and then make some improvements where we can, just as we get it documented. So that's where we were. And so when you look at the first step is assessing your system maturity, like where are you on this continuum of of maturity within your utility of this particular area of the business. And that can kind of help you to kind of say, okay, here's where we're at, and here's maybe where we want to get to with our effort here. So that really kind of defines, well, what's the outcome we want to achieve, and are we being realistic? I think is another key. So that's kind of the first step. Do some level of assessment. And for us, we just kind of used this model and made kind of a general assessment. But you can also be very, you can be very detailed about it. You can engage other people in your utility. You can kind of decide to what degree you want to go through that step. But that's really kind of first step in the process. And then the next step is to analyze the as-is state. So the assessment method measures how well a system actually works. The system model explains how a specific system works. It's kind of a way to think about it. And this analyze the as-is state, at least within the CIP planning and CIP delivery context, is about getting a business process model, documented in place. If you've already got one in place, which I think most of the folks on the call here today have some level of business process model in place, looking at your as-is model and and just making sure does it really reflect reality? Is it still current? Is it up to date? And then then the next, and for some folks it may be some other folks that may join in, they may not have a business process model. That was where we were a year ago, and so that's where we focused a lot of our effort, was really on just getting that as-is state documented. And if that's as far as a utility gets, I'll say for us, that was a lot of value. We're getting a lot of value out of that already. And that puts us in position then to go to the next step of designing a to-be state. So that's identifying what are some different ways we can modify this process, or adapt this process, or implement and do this process differently to gain some level of improvement. And that may include engaging some stakeholders to get that done. And I'll say for us at Casey Water, that's part of what we're going to do for this coming year, is really dig into some specific areas of CIP delivery. We've identified our project closeout process is lacking. So we're going to get it defined a little further. We're going to engage some of our stakeholders to identify, hey, how can we be doing this better, and work towards improving our project closeout process. So that's just kind of an example. So that's really the next steps. What do we want this process to look like? What improvements do we want to make? And then that next step is planning those improvements. How are we actually going to implement these? Because even if we get it identified and documented, then we actually have to go out into our organization and implement a new way of doing things, right? And then the final step is to actually implement. to actually implement those improvements. So, and that's where some of those other areas within WISE, using some of the tools and the assessment models may be helpful. Looking at organizational culture. Where is our culture at? What kind of folks am I working with, and how am I going to engage them towards implementing a new way of doing things? The change management tools as well. How do I actually take this plan for improvement and actually make it happen? So, so if for those of us on the call, anybody participating that makes it to that plan improvements and implement improvements, that's, I think, an area where we could really leverage some of the benefits of some of the things coming out of the other groups, where there might be some cross-pollination between our specific area that we're focused on and some of those other areas too. So, Cello, Scott, I don't know if you wanted to chime in at all about that. That's kind of something new for this year, because I think last year, the last couple of years, we've been pretty focused on business process modeling and implementing improvements within CIP delivery and planning. But we've got opportunities because of work done in other areas to kind of leverage benefit from some of those other areas.
Yes, well, the intention is to start integrating the work that's happening between different groups, so that in that stage when we actually plan and implement the strategy, that people can consider issues such as workforce and organizational culture within that process. Maybe not for the whole, not for the whole organization, but say, okay, is there any work that was done in these areas that would help us plan and improve the changes to this process? So.
And Dan, I'd just say, really nice explanation, Dan. But your improvement strategy could, for example, use the change management tools, and also technology was the other thing too, where that is an area that's going to be kicking off, and there can be some benefit there as well.
All right.
Yes.
So well done. So I think that's kind of something new this year, is because of the work that was been done last year within those other areas, and having Chilo and Scott who are engaged in those other areas, they can help us think through and possibly get engaged with those other areas to figure out how to leverage the benefit of that work that's being done there to actually do successful implementation of some of our improvements. So I'm kind of excited about that. But again, if folks, like I said, maybe aren't quite there yet, and they just get to this point where they've documented their business process, that to me is a success. It's like you're setting yourselves up to be able to continue to move through this continuum. But ultimately, we want to get to that place where we are, implementing improvements and getting kind of the value out of leveraging the methodology. So, all right. So that was the overview of the methodology. I probably took a little longer than I thought I would. We're about 37 minutes into our call. I want to shift gears and just, we put together, okay, this is kind of how things went last year for some of the other folk, or for the folks that participated, and what a schedule might look like in terms, and what you're going to do. So for the folks on the call today, I think it's going to look fairly familiar, but this is our plan, and we want to help one another kind of move through this, these activities. And again, we may not all go through the whole thing. So it's going to look different for each utility, and the timeline might look different too. But this is just a kind of a, here's something to start from in terms of if you want to pick an initiative and get all the way through the process and through the methodology. So it's as noted, Chelo put this together to say, schedule's going to be different, and it's going to depend on how much work you've already done in UAIM in the past, It's going to depend on the complexity of the process that you pick and how many, your available resources. But, let's just say hypothetically you pick a process that's fairly manageable. You've got people in place to help kind of work through those various steps of the methodology. This is what we envision happening. You're going to select a business process. You're going to develop the business process model, or confirm that your existing process model is good, and analyze that as is process. You're going to design a 2B model, or identify where you can make some improvements to that model. And we'd say, hey, if you're going to get through it in a year, we'd want to get through that in like the first 3 months. And then the next 3 months would focus on the improvement plan, change management strategy, and what are the success targets? Like, what are the outcomes you hope to achieve through implementation? We'd anticipate that go through about the next 3 months. And then the last kind of the second half of the year really focused on executing that improvement plan and documenting the results in some form of a case study. So that, again, is just kind of somewhere to start from. If you you can adapt it to fit, where you're at and what you want to get to. And just, again, for us at KC Water last year, we really focused on this piece that was in the first 3 months. We really, I think, pretty much focused on that for the majority of the year, and then we documented our results. And we did gain some improvements just by, really getting our as-is process documented. So we touched on some of those other areas as we got those as-is processes documented. We made some improvements. We implemented some improvements. So that's kind of what it looked like for us. So like I said, this is like kind of the cookie cutters way of kind of touching it, but in reality, how it might work out for you and your specific utility, your specific area of improvement, it's going to look something like this, but it may have some variations based on what you choose to do and the resources you have available. So,
just one thing I wanted to mention, Dan, is that we will have in this first 3 months, we will have about halfway through it a workshop at WEFTEC. And so we'll have a chance to talk about where people are on these things. And 6 months is really sort of when the utility management conference is going to be next year. So it'll be really an opportunity for people to go and present different utilities, these different steps that they've gone through. And then WEFTEC is next year is so it would line up with the events planned for next year. And we also had a plan for a summer workshop, which would fall about halfway through these 6 months of the last step. Anyway, just to line it up with events. I should have done that, but I failed to do so.
Okay, good. I'm going to skip over this next slide because we already talked about this. This was the slide to say, hey, we can leverage these other areas, that have tools and assessment and things where it makes sense for planning our improvements and implementing our improvements within CIP Delivery.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
I was just going to add on to what you said by saying that, let's say you do the closeout process is something you do. Well, there's the opportunity for you also to learn how are others doing a closeout process, and get feedback and really take advantage of collaboration that way.
And that's part of what these biweekly calls, can help us do. All right, so just in terms of deliverables, this is where we want to get to through our efforts, is to have business process models with some defined metrics of what those models are intended to deliver. Case studies for our implementations. So we want to get to the end of the year and be able to tell people what we did. And when you hear case study, some people think, oh, I got to write a long paper. No, you don't need to write a long paper. I just started when I did it, just like put together bullet lists of here's what we did. And then again, our team can kind of help to capture kind of the essence of what was done. And then at the end of last year, we did some workshops and had opportunities for people to share presentations. And so that's kind of another way that we can capture and document and get these case studies put together. And then finally, shared artifacts. Anything you develop through this process, we want to be able to share those and put those into the knowledge base. And then updating, anything we learn in terms of the guidelines for how to approach this process, how to do it, at least within this area. So, anything else, Chillo and Scott, on that?
No, I think that's really covered, and I'm gonna rework this as SurveyMonkey.
Yeah, so we had planned to do a Mentimeter to ask a few questions, and maybe Chillo, you can just kind of throw out to the group the questions, and we'll put it into a SurveyMonkey and send it out to the full group so we can get feedback from everybody.
So the questions. Give me just a second. Yes, the questions that we were anticipating. You wanted to get feedback from folks if they're good questions. Is that what you wanted?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to give folks on the call, like,
yes.
Send out the SurveyMonkey. Here's what we're going to ask you guys as well as others on the list.
Yeah, let me share the screen if that's okay with you, and I can, because I don't remember what the questions look like. So this was the first question, and we would allow people, it would allow people to just provide 3 comments each on what were the things that are the biggest pain points in their current CIP planning and delivery. Then ask a question, what would you like to accomplish for your utility as part of this effort, so we can gauge later on and see if we've met expectations and if we're addressing the right pain points and delivering the accomplishments people want. And then the last one was really feedback on these bi-weekly meetings, if people have ideas on what they would like to see. Our original plan was that we would that these meetings would be used for discussions between different teams who are working on different parts of these processes. And one week somebody say, okay, well, this is what we've done, and then get comments from others, and then it would kind of rotate from one participant to the next. So that's what I will put into the SurveyMonkey and send to the people who are participating in this improvement initiatives. So
yeah, I think we got about 14 minutes left. So for folks on the call, based on those questions, if you want to chime in with some thoughts on that, love to hear from this group. In particular, any one of those 3 questions, what are your pain points? Just to kind of think about, well, what initiative are you going to focus on? What are you wanting to get out of this team's effort within WISE? And then, that third one, what would you like to see in these meetings? Because like I say, we've got them planned every 2 weeks, and we want them to be of value for everybody. So maybe with the next 10 minutes or so, if any of you have kind of some thoughts or any one of those questions, we can open it up to the group.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna always have something to say, and I'm gonna go first because I'm gonna have to have another meeting that I have to travel to go to. So I'll be real quick. I want to first say that I think that I love the way that you have segmented that. We have parallel efforts of new people coming on, and then the people that we already have. And I just so you'll know what MSD is going to do, we're going to continue our phase 2 of our project last year. So we're going to do our to be part of that. So that's going to be our focus as far as this, the delivery process. what I like to be able to see in terms of the meetings is that we are very clear about knowing what we're going to do that week. If we're going to focus on what the people who've already been been involved, that type of effort, or is that going to be a meeting that's going to be that when we have like 6 new partners and we're going to spend time for that, because you can tell that the next meeting, if it's all new people, then I can make that decision, or do I need to be involved, or if am I going to be a resource? As we bring new people along, I like to see us to set up some type of a mentor, so we can have somebody ask those questions, and then maybe we would even highlight, especially for I'm more concerned about the people who are coming in, is that we give them some kind of value every time. So and we've done that before, where we could point out some of the artifacts. We may even have some of our past partners summarize what they've done. I think Jeff with Metro Vancouver has done that so that we can help identify what's there, because I think you'll have people that if they come in, it is overwhelming. And I just think we just have to have focused functions like that. And then we're cognizant that it's okay that if this doesn't apply to me, and I already know that up front, that I can skip, or if I know that I can contribute, or it's something I want to learn that I know. But I think that's going to be real, real critical to keep this fluid and going.
Thank you very much for that. I'm writing
Jeff?
it down.
Oh,
That's good. And I think that to me
Jeff's
was-
on mute. Jeff's on mute.
Go ahead, Jeff. Yeah, jump in.
I would echo Zanetta's comments. I think having a clear program for what's on the schedule, this differentiation between we want to repeat some old material for a bunch of new members to give them a taste for what the value of this would be, not just a taste, but a concrete example. Knowing coming in, do you want me or someone from Metro to repeat some of our past material? Glad to do so, as compared to we've got someone else has got something to share about CIP delivery that I'm going to learn from and then take back to the team. Knowing that in advance really helps. And we're glad to take on either of those roles, but breaking that down might be helpful. You might even schedule the meetings to reflect that, to say, this one's especially great for newbies. This one's going to be for old timers or a bunch deeper into the process and are ready to have a program in place and are making major renos or tweaking it. I think those are great comments. I'd echo that. And that'll help me also on our side to organize our resources. I'll be taking this back in-house. We got to coordinate within the WISE, our own participation in WISE, make sure we got the right person in the room at the right time.
Well, thank you.
Zanetta brought up mentoring. Did you want to talk at all about?
One of the things that we were hoping to accomplish, I mean, you could have also helped me, you know the same as I do, Scott. So the ideas are that we would try to structure mentorship across different utilities. So maybe somebody from Vancouver really wants to learn from Zanetta and be sort of a very flexible in generating kind of cross-pollination of all the different talents and skills, because it sometimes is easier to talk to somebody who's not in the same hierarchical chain that you are, to hear you and stuff like that. So this would also mean that we would encourage people to bring into the meetings people who are maybe a little bit more junior or younger people, because for WEF, the Young Professionals initiative or program that they have is very important. So far we've had mostly experienced people or sort of senior people in these calls, but for succession planning and for this mentorship, I think would give it a different dimension. That would give it more depth within each organization. So that's a good point, Scott. It's difficult because we've had a number of meetings on this mentorship, so I never know what I'm repeating, what people already know who was in it, but that's that's what we're planning.
Yeah.
My thoughts
doing a
on the
great job.
mentorship
It's tough.
idea. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Zanetta.
No, I said this is tough, and it's dynamic and it's fluid and it has to change based on what it is. Just for example, we're going to have a change on who helped me because she's no longer with who I used is no longer with Hazen. So when the next person I bring back, I'll have to have them to start all over
Yeah.
too, So I I think you've done an excellent job, and we just have to be fluid but intentional about and understanding that and getting people to give us feedback. But you're right. And just one other real quick point. Most of the people have contacted me and Dr. Cho, I contact him all the time of using the resources. Believe it or not, some of the stuff that people need don't even have to do with the 6 topics. And that's another thing that we can, capitalize on as a benefit is that would, part of the spill every 2 weeks to say, hey, do you have any other issue that you're struggling with? Because you all are such great experts that, you have other things that you can have with even outside of the 6 topics. And that's another reason to be a part of this, part of this effort. So that's enough for me. Sorry.
That's a good point, Zanetta. We've done that with Dan. I've got a thought on the mentorship topic. Mentorships are a great mechanism. We use them at Metro. If you've got someone who needs to do a lot of broad learning and understand an organization and how that works, I think though in this particular case, I'm a little concerned about whether that too broad won't work. Most people who are looking for learning probably have a more targeted need. And it might be that what we're calling a mentorship would be better as we've got a specific problem. It relates to whatever it might be, CIP delivery, and we're at this stage of our work. Can you hook me up with someone who's been there and done that I can learn from on a specific topic? I think if we make it too broad, it might be hard to, it might be less focused and less meaningful. Whereas if you're able to say, I'm coming in new and here's my specific problem. Thanks for the general overall guidance on that. Can you hook me up with someone specifically who's willing to hold our hand a bit through that? That might be more of a targeted mentorship of sorts.
That's excellent. That's an excellent comment, Dan, and that's an excellent comment. And about a year ago, I tried establishing a place in our Microsoft Teams platform where people could head and ask any question, and then any of the participant utilities could answer the question and stuff like that. But the thing is that everybody's been so busy that questions would get posted, but nobody would ever look at it. And for me, it's also a balance, not just for me, for the project team, is how much we already feel guilty, how much we intrude on your time and everything. Where do you draw the line? It's best when these things grow organically, and whatever you guys can contribute in terms of ideas and solutions, we can then improve. But I remember when I was at CDM, if I had, whatever crazy problem you had, there was this like almost a thing where you would just post it to this space, like I've got a million ducks in this water reservoir. What do I do? Or something that and then somewhere in some other office, somebody would say, "Oh, I dealt with that, and this is what we did." So it would be nice if we can develop something like that, and hopefully WEF will provide us a platform. But it's a very good comment.
And it could be, Jeff, a two-way street. One, it could be like what the problems are that you want to have solved. And because there are team members that you may not even be dealing with that, people like Cello or myself or Mike might know of. But it could also be that if there's an area that you feel really comfortable in mentoring somebody else, that you self-identify what that is. So if you're willing to spend that time, because everybody who's participating has definitely skill sets that others could benefit from. So this is a work in progress, I think is what Cello's saying. And,
absolutely. Yeah, those are good thoughts. And Cello, to be honest, I had lost track of the fact that you'd set up that platform. So it is true, we're all so busy. So I didn't even think to check there, and I do see the value of that. It's a matter of when you're in a bind and you're trying to think about resources, how do you respond and where do you go? And if that were, and yeah, that I do see the potential for that, and I didn't even think of it. So we had an issue come up and I called Dan because I remember Dan mentioning something. It was
Yeah.
a little more organic, but I think what you've described could be part of that organic structure too.
Like
That's great. So Dan, back to you.
Yeah, we've just got a couple minutes left, and I just put up on the screen what we had kind of come up with as some suggested action items for folks. Just with the last minute, Duncan, Zach, or Mike, any final questions or words you wanted to throw in before we wrap up today?
The only thing, well, thank you so much. I'm new at this, but as I said, I was in the background last year. But one thing that working at Gitachu and Catherine that I noticed, we started with a bigger group within DC Water, but by April, May of this year, the group had dwindled to like 4 or 5 people. And I was wondering whether there is a way how you keep people engaged. Sometime when we start these projects or initiatives, a lot of people volunteer, but by the end of 3 months, 4 months down the line, we start losing some of the team members. And one thing I would like at least to keep in mind is how you keep people within your organization engaged, and so that they don't drop off, because everybody offers important contribution, whether they know it or not. But we have struggled in keeping people engaged within DC Water, and moving to the next year, I think that's something that we need to keep in mind, because you cannot call it stakeholders engagement. It's only Gitachu and I. That's what I would like at least help with, to keep people within my organization engaged, so that we don't end up come a year from now just 2 people from DC Water.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Good comment. Good comment. So, all right. Well, I've got 10:30. I want to be respectful of folks' time. Scott Shello, let's kind of take